right, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today. The first story that I've got for you guys today, this seems to be the story that everybody is the most captivated with, and that is the potential of a big Ramy comeback for the 2025 Mr. Olympia. Now, the reason for this speculation is because Big Ramy has been reposting on his story all throughout the day, essentially reposts about him competing in the 2025 Mr. Olympia. Which is kind of noteworthy because Ramy notoriously doesn't really post anything. He doesn't really say anything about what his plans are, what he's doing. He doesn't post any training videos, any physique updates, any posing videos, any competition plans. So for him to post, 4 or 5 stories in a row, all of people talking about him coming and doing the 2025 Mr. Olympia, I think actually is significant cause for speculation. And then also a couple months ago, Ramy had done an interview with a French YouTube channel. I believe it was called Most Muscular TV. And in that interview, he talked about how he wants to do the 2025 Mr. Olympia and make a comeback. And we talked about that a few months ago, but this seems to be further adding fuel to that fire. And do I think Big Ramy will come back? I actually think there's a reasonable chance that he will. I mean, you got to keep in mind, even though it seems like he's been away for a long time, it's really only been a couple of years. The last Olympia he competed in was only 2 Olympias ago. He sat out 2023 and 2024, and it seems like forever, but I think that's just kind of exacerbated by the fact that Ramy has been so MIA since he's been gone. He hasn't been doing very many appearances, no guest posings, no physique updates, like I said, no training videos, none of that stuff. No interviews, really just a couple like random things here and there. So it seems like he's been completely out of the picture, but he's not. And it's also not like Big Ramy is ancient either. I mean, he's 40. He's 1 year older than Samson Dauda, and I think obviously Samson Dauda is still in the conversation to win the Olympia this year. He just won it last year. So he's not necessarily age-wise beyond the possibility of coming back better. But I think it's really more than just a question of, is Big Ramy going to come back? It's also the question of, if he does come back, will he actually be a threat? Will he actually be improved? Can he fix those weak points? Can he bring up his back to where it used to be? And I actually talked to a friend of Ramy's recently, and he said Ramy has been training like he always has. He never stopped training. He's still the same size as he's always been. He said he's still huge. But he said to his knowledge, Ramy hasn't been working with a coach. He doesn't have a coach and hasn't been working with one for a while, according to his friend, or at least as far as his friend knows. So I think that's kind of another piece of this equation, is if Ramy does come back, what kind of guidance has he had in this time that he's taken off? Has he had, a new coach? Has he had multiple coaches? What kind of supervision has he had medically with the stem cell thing and trying to bring up these lagging body parts and trying to come back and be a threat to win a 3rd title? Because we really don't know if he does have a coach. Is it going to be Chad again? Does he have a new coach? Is he not working with anybody? Is he prepping himself? And we don't know because Ramy really just doesn't say. So I think that's an interesting thing to think about too, is like all this time that Ramy has been gone, has he been checking in with anybody, like sending physique updates, tracking his progress with a coach or somebody giving him guidance to make sure that if he is planning on coming back, this time that he's taken off is used optimally? Because if he's been just kind of going through the motions training-wise, like he's still been training all this time that he's been off and he's still been maintaining his size, but if it's just been him going through the motions and just training kind of how he wants to, does that point to a new, improved version of Ramy coming in and winning this thing? So I think to those two questions, do I think he could come back? Yes. Do I think he could come back and win? I think that's a lot less likely. But also not impossible given the landscape of bodybuilding right now. We've talked a lot about how the Olympia title has changed hands many times over the last few years. And while Ramy is significantly older than maybe Derek and Nick, Samson and Hadi, Hadi's 37, Samson is 39, Ramy just turned 40. So it's not like it's way outside of the realm of possibility for Ramy to be in the conversation just because it feels like he's been gone forever, just because it feels like he may be past his prime. age-wise and the amount of time he's been gone, it's really not that long. And I mean, look at guys like William Bonac. I mean, William Bonac has completely reinvented his physique. He's still winning shows, and he's 43. He's 3 years older than Ramy. And granted, there's a big difference between winning shows and winning the Olympia. But I mean, the point is, I don't think Ramy has passed the point of potentially reinventing his physique. Sasarati, also in his 40s. And look at the way that Sauce has captivated the bodybuilding world with all these shows that he's been doing and the condition that he's been able to bring. And he took a pretty big hiatus before, starting up this like ramp of shows. And he's looking like he's probably going to be able to win maybe 2 shows this year, in addition to winning the show this past weekend, the Toronto Pro. I think he's got a really good chance at winning the M Pro Classic this weekend as well. And he's older than Ramy. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Is there a chance that we see Big Ramy come back and compete at the 2025 Mr. Olympia? And if so, do you think he has a chance at being top 3, let alone being a threat to winning the title again? And who do you think his coach is going to be? I mean, that's kind of the mystique of Ramy, and I think that's why the kind of bodybuilding community memory span seems to be so short, with him only being gone a little over 2 years. It feels like a decade, and I really do think a big part of that is that Ramy just doesn't post or really share anything about what's going on with him. And that's kind of the other thing, too, is I was thinking, obviously I always love to see a good comeback like this, especially a Mr. Olympia champ make a comeback. Comebacks are always good in my opinion. Even if someone comes back and shits the bed, it's still really exciting. It's still a good storyline. But I was kind of thinking about, like, if Ramy does come back, yes, it would be exciting, but do fans necessarily want Ramy to come back and win a 3rd title? From the standpoint of he took this hiatus, if he does come back and win again, he's just going to go back to Egypt, and then we're not going to hear from him. He's just going to take the Olympia title home, and we're just not going to hear from him for the rest of the year. So in this recent era where we've been kind of spoiled with Derek and Samson, especially a lot of the stuff that Samson has been doing, basically going on these like Olympia tours all over the world, doing all these meet and greets, doing all these guest posings, even competing again and putting it on the line to do the Arnold Classic Ohio this year. Seeing guys like Derek and Samson that have been really good ambassadors with that title, and they're very active on social media. They're constantly posting updates. They're traveling. They're meeting fans. They're doing all the things that you would want a Mr. Olympia champion to do. As exciting as it would be for Ramy to come back, I don't know if fans would necessarily be happy if he came back and won the Olympia and just went back home with that title, and then it's a whole year of a Mr. Olympia that we don't hear from. I think in this day and age with social media and bodybuilding, the accessibility to guys like Samson and guys like Derek and them really wanting to engage with their fans, I think is really an important aspect of the Olympia these days. And obviously, at the bare bones, it's just a bodybuilding competition, and none of that stuff matters when it comes to the judging, and none of that stuff matters when it comes to who wins. But it does matter after the fact. Because when you look at Derek and Samson, for example, you could say, after their Olympia reign, even if Samson only wins 1 and Derek only wins 1, Ramy won 2. How many people can look back and say, oh, I got to see Mr. Olympia Big Ramy guest posing. I got to see Mr. Olympia Big Ramy compete at this show or that show. Or I got to meet Mr. Olympia Big Ramy at an expo while he was holding the title. And compared to Samson, there's a lot of people that can say, oh, I saw Samson as Mr. Olympia compete at a show like the Arnold. I saw Samson as Mr. Olympia at an expo, at a guest posing, at a meet and greet. Same with Derek Lunsford. And I don't know how fondly in this day and age, someone that just takes the title home and never does anything, I don't know how that's going to resonate with the fans as far as how history is going to remember it. Now, next up in the news, the latest physique update from Behrooz Tabani. Let's switch gears here because that was a long rant about Big Ramy. But Behrooz, 2 weeks out of the Dubai Pro, where he's looking for his 2025 Olympia qualification, which hopefully, if he wins in Dubai, is not in vain. He did win last year's Dubai Pro, was not able to get to the Olympia. We talked about the travel ban this year. It looks like it might be a challenge for him again. However, I still think that now, even that we know Tonio is in this lineup, you look at an update like this from Behrooz, and he's last year's defending champion, like I just mentioned. I think Behrooz is still the favorite, and I think Behrooz is going to be very tough to beat. And I don't remember which video it was, but a couple of videos ago I was talking about how Behrooz has a crazy most muscular. This is what I'm talking about. That hands clasp most muscular, just the condition that he shows throughout his chest in this pose, the way his delts pop in this pose, his arms look huge. His hands clasp most muscular is one of the best, especially with the condition that he brings, and he's just got these really deep, like rippling striations in his chest. I still think Behrooz is the favorite here, and you've got Nathan, you've got Nexzilla, you've got Tonio, and that's why, again, I do think it's a real shame if these new travel restrictions do prevent him from competing at the Olympia, because this guy is without a doubt one of the best in the world, and I think he's going to be one of the biggest names in that Dubai lineup that's going to make it so exciting. And he also briefly showed his abs in this update as well. And you talk about the condition that he brings. Look at his abs. Look at his serratus. Look at his obliques. Just detail on detail. It reminds me of Hadi Chupin. Hadi has that crazy, like, oblique abdominal development when he's in really good shape. And the same level of detail is what you're seeing here from Behrooz. And I just really hope, man, if he does win this Dubai Pro, because this is going to be a hell of a lineup with those guys in it, it's going to be a big win, not just a big payday, but beating Tonio Burton, beating Nathan Diasha, beating Nexzilla, these are big-name guys. And I think if you win a show like that, you even more so belong on that Olympia stage. And it's certainly not for lack of trying. He's been desperately trying to get to the Olympia for years now. So I hope that the more that we talk about him and the more bodybuilding channels are covering him and the more his name is out there, if he does win this show and he does look incredible, maybe somebody sees this and like acknowledges, okay, this guy is a top-level athlete. He's a top-level bodybuilder. Maybe we will grant him the exception to come compete at the Olympia because, I mean, look at all these videos about him. Look at everybody talking about him. He's clearly one of the best bodybuilders in the world. And that's kind of my hope because they've done, they've tried doing like petitions. I know that they've had Dan Solomon and Jake Wood and various people from the IFBB write like letters of recommendation to the White House or to, I guess, whoever would grant the visa. And none of that has really worked so far. So I just hope that maybe somehow a bunch of people talking about him online makes them realize, okay, yeah, he is an important athlete in his sport. He is one of the best in the world in his sport. That exception for the travel applies to him. But unfortunately, I do think it's probably wishful thinking. And I think that the trend so far would suggest that we're probably not going to get to see him at the Olympia, but we can still hope. It will be a real shame, though, if he wins this show and we don't get to see him compete at the O. Now, next up in the news, I wanted to touch on this as well. I saw this clip, Derek Lunsford talking about the hate and the backlash he got. He said specifically from Nick Walker fans after he won the Pittsburgh Pro. So I wanted to talk about this. I'm going to play the clip first, and then we'll talk about it.
Come off the show, and I win, and then I'm hit with this news that my grandma passes away. Right, she's passed away, and then I honestly don't care. I mean, I do care to some degree what people say in bodybuilding, but like, imagine then you're hit with all the Nick Walker fans. Look, Nick's an amazing bodybuilder. It's great. It's great that he has his fans. I think that it's somewhat good for the sport that we have. I think it's good for the sport that the fans support their favorite athletes. Now, how they support by tearing other people down is not really a good thing, but that's why I don't ever encourage my supporters to do that. But nonetheless, I'm getting hit with that, so I just put my phone away, and then we're traveling back to pick up Evie here in Florida. Then we go back to Indiana. So travel again. All the while, I was hanging on by a thread to get to the show. After I came back from Germany, it was like a struggle getting to Pittsburgh.
So to an extent, I think Derek does have a point. It does seem to be kind of a common theme with bodybuilding fans that, like, the hardcore fans of one guy can be very overwhelming when their guy gets beaten. You've seen that with Hottie when Derek won. I think that was probably the most egregious example that I can think of in recent memory. Like the fans were, it was like death threats. It was like crazy stuff. Now with the Nick Walker situation, Nick obviously has a lot of fans, a lot of passionate fans. I personally didn't see anything like crazy. It was a lot of Nick Walker was robbed comments. It was mostly that, at least what I saw. Now Derek may have gotten messages or whatever, but like with the Hottie Chupin thing, I did see some of the crazy comments just out there in the open when Derek beat Hottie that were like a step too far. But as far as if you're a fan of Nick Walker and you watch the Pittsburgh Pro, as close as it was, Nick winning prejudging, Derek winning finals to swing it in his favor and end up winning the whole show, if you're a Nick Walker fan, I don't think it's too much to comment on a post of Derek's and say, I think Nick was robbed. I think that's bodybuilding fandom. Your guy didn't win. You thought he should have won. You're expressing that opinion. And I think that just kind of comes with the territory of being a pro bodybuilder. But I know that it's like there is kind of a line. There is nuance to this conversation. The easy thing to say is, well, this is what you signed up for. You're a pro bodybuilder, so everything that comes with it, just deal with it. Whatever the criticism is, whatever the comments are, whatever the backlash is, you should just have to accept all of that. And to an extent, that's true. I think bodybuilders should be able to accept criticism. I think they should be able to accept if people disagree with the result. I think bodybuilders should be able to accept backlash. But at the same time, there is a line. And again, I didn't see this happening with the Nick Walker thing, like death threats and like violent comments. But I think that's the line. And I think also like insults towards family members and stuff like that, I think that's part of the line too. So I think there is kind of a mentality where bodybuilding fans, the easy thing to say is, well, you're a pro bodybuilder, you just have to accept all of this. But I do think at the same time, there should be like a nuanced take on that. Like, yes, you can criticize them and say whatever, but the family stuff, the violent stuff, I don't think that is that should be part of it. And again, I didn't see that with the Pittsburgh Pro situation. I didn't see that with the Nick Walker situation. I mean, I did see a lot of negative comments towards Derek, but I think that is part of the game. The negative comments in bodybuilding, I mean, that's a huge part of it. If you like one guy and don't like another and your guy doesn't win, you're not going to say something positive. It makes sense. But I do feel like there is a mentality of like anything goes. You can just say anything to a pro bodybuilder because they signed up to have their physiques judged. And like I said, I just think to an extent that's true, but I think at the same time it's bodybuilding. We're looking at guys flexing on stage. It's really not that serious to like take it to the next level. Even if you're insulting their physique, whatever, that's fine. If you're insulting them, even personally, I think to an extent that's fine. If you don't like the way they represent the sport, or you don't like their personality, or you don't like the way they act or the way they talk or whatever, they're a public figure. They won the Olympia. That does come with the territory. But again, it's guys flexing on stage at the end of the day. And some of that like next level stuff, the death threats and the, bringing in family and all this other stuff, like taking it that serious, I think that's where it crosses the line. So I do think there's a line. But again, with what Derek was saying, I didn't see that line get crossed with the Pittsburgh stuff. Now, if you guys did, let me know in the comments down below. But the only time that I can remember thinking the line was crossed recently was the Hottie Chupin situation, because they went like bonkers when Derek beat Hottie. And I think to an extent they did as well when Samson won in 2024. But it didn't seem like it was as bad as when Derek first beat Hottie, because when Derek beat Hottie, he was taking away Hottie's title, essentially. So I think that elicited a little bit more of a visceral reaction from Hottie's fans. But I do think, to Derek's point, maybe a lowering of the temperature when it comes to some of this stuff, I think maybe wouldn't be a bad thing. You can say whatever you want, criticize their physique, say whatever, but I mean, just keep it in the context of it's a bodybuilding show. It doesn't need to be like rage, anger, violence type of stuff. It can be mean, it can be whatever, but I do think there should maybe a lowering of the temperature in Derek's case wouldn't be a bad thing. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Now, the final story that I have for you guys today, because it's getting a little bit long because of that Ramy rant in the beginning. The latest physique update from Stephane Matala, who is making his switch to men's open bodybuilding and apparently is 13 weeks out from his debut and 15 weeks out from another show that's going to follow that. And he weighs 272 pounds in this post, according to his coach, Patrick Torr. And looking at the IFBB schedule, let's try to figure this out here. So if he's 13 weeks out, his debut show would likely be, if it's men's open bodybuilding, which it obviously is, I believe that would either put him at the Italy show, which is September 7th, the 2025 Pro Muscle Italy, or the Europa Pro, which is September 14th in Germany. And again, he is an international guy. He's French. They call him the French Ramondino. And there is, maybe that would be it. Maybe the other show would be the Tsunami Pro in France, which is September 27th. I'm really bad at math, trying to do this in my head. So maybe he'll do the Europa first in Germany, and then the France show would be 2 weeks after that, so 13 and 15 weeks would make sense there. Yeah, that would make sense. I could see that, because the September 7th show, there wouldn't be a show 2 weeks after that, so maybe Europa and Tsunami would be the shows that he's shooting for his open debut. And hopefully this goes well. I mean, obviously the guy is very genetically gifted. It's been kind of a shame that we haven't gotten to see him on the Olympia stage. He qualified for Classic Physique at the Olympia twice. Neither of the times was he able to compete for whatever the personal reasons were. I believe one time his mom was sick, and the other time maybe he was sick. But for whatever the reasons were, we didn't get to see him compete in Classic Physique at the Olympia. But I actually think he's going to do well in open bodybuilding. Do I think he's going to win a pro show right out of the gate? Probably not. But I do think he's got a really nice structure. It seems like, at 272 pounds, it seems like he's added a pretty good amount of size, which would be, at 272, 13 weeks out, it seems like it would be enough for open. But just the frame that he has, the structure that he has, the muscle bellies that he has, I can see that frame carrying a lot more size than what we saw from him in Classic Physique. And I can see over time him becoming a pretty good open pro. So I'm very excited to see his pro debut. But this is his latest physique update at 13 and 15 weeks out. And again, I believe that would put him at the Europa Pro September 14th and the Tsunami Pro September 27th. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, click that bell notification icon if you have not already. And as always, I love you guys, appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power signing out. All right, guys, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to this channel if you enjoy the content. Also, check out my Instagram at Nick Strength Power, my Facebook page, which is simply Nick Strength and Power, my secondary YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Vlogs, for vlogs and bonus content that you will not see on this channel. And consider subscribing to my third YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Pokemon, which is all things Pokemon and trading card games, completely unrelated to this channel. So if you're into that, give that one a look. And all links to merchandise and social media will be in the description box below. If you guys want a Nick Strength and Power t-shirt, that will be in the Shopify link below. Have a great day.